Hey everyone, welcome to the Tom's Hardware Podcast for January 25th, 2022. As always, I'm Tom's Hardware Editor-in-Chief, Avram Pilch, and I am joined by Associate Editor Les Pounder, Raspberry Pi expert Ash Puckett, and Raspberry Pi Co-Founder Pete Lomas joining us this week.
Hi,
Pete. It's so wonderful to have you on. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. I was having a little bit of a panic earlier on today when Twitter said I was going to be talking about the early days of Raspberry Pi rather than the community, but otherwise I'm absolutely fine. Yeah, quickly changed my notes, yeah. I'm terrible with dates. I mean, that's one thing you probably want a Raspberry Pi to do with a little display we were talking about earlier, They can remember all the dates because it's like, for me, it's like 12 years now as we're coming up to the 10th birthday, because people forget that we sort of doodled around with it a little bit before. Well, actually, it's 14. Goes back to 2008, in fact, when we actually had our very first meeting to decide that we'd make this small computer that eventually got called Raspberry Pi.
Wow. So who was in the first meeting?
Well, so there was me and 3 Cambridge University professors. There was Jack Lang. Oh my God, why is it? As soon as you get on it, you can't. There was Jack Lang, obviously Eben Upton, as we all know, Rob Mullins, and also Dave Braben from Frontier Silicon, and Alan Mycroft. And Alan Mycroft was the important one because he was the one I'd met in London like 2 weeks before, who said, I've got this great idea, but we haven't really got anybody to help build it. And I thought, well, you have now. So that's how it all started. But it took us quite a while to actually get to the finished product. And of course, it launched on that most inconvenient of days in the end of February.
Right. Well,
before you guys settled on the name for Raspberry Pi, did the project have any kind of code name?
No, I mean, from the day I got involved with it, the word raspberry had been bounded around. I wasn't quite sure whether that was a code name. But then when I found out we were actually going to call it Raspberry Pi, I sort of, sharp intake of breath. Computer called Raspberry Pi, how's that going to work? And then somebody pointed out, well, they do call things apples. And we have had the, the tangerine, Les, in the UK?
The tangerine, yeah.
And we've had acorns, and we've had, so why not? And
Pete, we had apricot as well, didn't we?
We did have apricot momentarily, yes.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to work our way through all the fruit, really.
Yeah, I mean, there was blackberry too, right? So
yeah, exactly.
And now we've got banana pie and orange pie as a follow-up.
That's right. I think right early days somebody said that quite a lot of successful electronics is named after fruit, so let's go for it, But I mean, also the thing to think about is that it actually engages the kids to go, a computer called a raspberry? Oh, you're joking? No, here it is. And then of course we got this the absolutely great logo for the Raspberry Pi. I think that's been absolutely essential. When you say, Les, it's now become iconic, I think.
That logo is fantastic. That was Paul Beach, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, and it was a competition we ran, and for one of my dear friends in America who may or may not be watching, here's the pink shirt and the jacket that mostly I've worn for every event for Raspberry Pi for the last 10 years.
That's going to have to go into the Media Museum, isn't it, one day?
What, the jacket? Yeah.
Well, the jacket, the shirt. I mean, you as well.
Probably me as well. Yeah. You think mummified? Yeah, thanks a lot. just not yet. Right? Yeah. I mean, but I think I can't remember. You might be able to remember, Les, when I did the first presentation of Raspberry Pi at OggCamp back in, 2012 in Liverpool? Was it this jacket? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah,
I think it was. I might have some photographs to dig up somewhere for that.
Yeah,
But
I was a bit nervous on that day, but I've sort of got over that now. Really.
that was a great day in the community though, at camp. You couldn't get Raspberry Pis for love nor money, and you just walk in saying, "I've got some in the back of my car."
Yeah. Yeah. Who wants one? Yeah.
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 So
Well,
how did you?
Go on. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say. I understand at one time the idea was that it was going to be almost a USB thumb drive shape, or that was something that was being demoed. So how did you decide on the shape?
The shape actually just came from the fact that, well, it was going to be a bit expensive to get it on a thumb drive size. It was quite a complicated PCB. That also had a camera on it, and we decided we'd just have a camera interface. But I also wanted to get the GPIO exposed and out on those pins, because that's all the computers I've ever played with have always had those. I mean, when the PC came along and they disappeared, I was mortified. And you had to try and murder the printer port to get something to work, so you could actually talk to the computer, or buy an interface at some ridiculous amount of money. But no, the idea was we wanted it to be simple. It had to be cheap. That was the real kill. It had to be cheap enough to break. And so you wouldn't worry about it. I mean, you can just see somebody there, oh, Dad, I've just taken the back off my MacBook Air and I've wired all these wires in and it seems to have stopped working. Help.
Well, yeah, that's the cheap price means the kids can just play and understand through breaking stuff and failing, and that's what makes it so appealing to the kids of 2012. And I'm one of those kids of 2012. I know I'm 43, but
never change, Les. Never change.
No.
So yeah, I mean it's cheap enough to break, but on the other hand, I have to say, in my experience, very sturdy. Did you guys do anything in particular to make it more durable than most single PCBs?
We did a few things. We spent a long time trying to work out the micro USB connectors to make sure they didn't get pulled off. And they're actually, if you look at them closely, they're even on the first model, they've actually got pins that go into the board that sort of anchor them. Same with the HDMI. Because the first early trials, you only had to sort of lash it around by its cable. I mean, how many times, Les, have you pulled one off the desk by catching a cable under your feet and pull them off, and there it is? I can
neither confirm nor deny that, Pete.
No, I've never seen you do that ever.
I've never done it in a live demo in front of a lot of people. Never.
No, never happened. But it'd be more embarrassing if the connector just came off in your hand, really. The one thing that was funny is, of course, there's a little capacitor called C6 that's just by. You were going to move on to that if I didn't, weren't you, Les? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just by the power connector. And what I used to say to people is, if you've got your Raspberry Pi, have I got a Raspberry Pi? I don't believe it. I haven't got one in range. How poor. I've got a little plaque of 4 circuit boards, but basically you would hold it. You'd hold it by the ends and just yank the power cord out, because, of course, we didn't bother putting a switch on it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, if you were being a little bit unadventurous and didn't grab the circuit board tightly enough, you'd actually clock this C6 and knock it off. And then I think, if I remember right, Eben berated me because we found it worked perfectly well without it. So why had I bothered putting it on the bomb? But hey, you can't win them all. But we're going to talk about that in about a month's time, aren't we? When we're going to go into the history of Raspberry Pi.
We are. We've got you and Eben on the same
I'm going to
episode.
say, yeah, shocking. Should be fun.
Yeah, definitely. You're here tonight, Pete, to talk about community.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That's true. So, where did it all start? And the answer, well, I think the answer has got to be Preston, which is the center of the universe.
It is, yeah.
So, I mean, that was Alan O'Donoghue who actually came up. Was it his wife actually came up with the name? Why didn't you call it a Raspberry Jam?
That's it.
because we already had the name. I'm sure they went through thousands of other ideas before they got to that, but it was the sort of obvious, the musicians jamming. Well, this is the kids jamming with Pi technology, which is just great. So if I remember right, he put out an ad for the first Raspberry Jam. Yeah. Okay. He sold, I think it was something, I can't remember. It was only something like he'd done a really small thing, thinking, well, this is going to go like, if I sell, I think it was 30 tickets. If I sell them, that'll be a small miracle. I think he was oversubscribed by about a factor of 3 or something.
Yeah.
Then a guy called Ben Nuttall, he was cheeky little person, says, hey, this is a great idea. Now you'll see why in a second. This is a great idea. Can I do a Raspberry Jam in Manchester? And he did, and then organised it. I think it was 2 or 3 days before Alan's, so he managed to pip Alan's for the first event, even though it was Alan's. So there's always been a little bit of rivalry between Manchester and Preston about that. But hey, I think it's super cool that they both did it within a few days of each other.
Definitely, I was at both of the first events. And it's such a completely different feel between the two venues and formats. And it was fantastic because there's such a wide variety of people with experiences that you can learn from there.
Oh, that's right. I mean, it was in the, what was it? What was the place called, Les? I can never remember. And it was in the cultural quarter of Manchester.
Oh, Mad Lab.
Mad Lab, that's it. Most appropriate, yeah.
Yeah, Manchester Digital Laboratory, Mad Lab.
So there you go, and that's where it all started.
That was like the free software centre of Manchester. Everyone went there. Every event went there at that time, and it's just full of people into Linux and free software and electronics, all just hacking around and talking.
And really, that's to some degree that's the model. I think the thing that hackspaces have the advantage of, really, and I've actually, been to quite a lot. I've been very lucky to sort of get to like Vancouver Hackspace, into Sweden to Hackspaces, and they're all different, but all the same in that they usually have quite a lot of fairly hair-raising equipment that you can use and things that you can, put together. If you need a bit of plywood, somebody will have a saw somewhere, bandsaw or something, and then drills and welding kit. Although I don't recommend using welding kit on a Raspberry Pi, it doesn't survive terribly.
Laser cutter.
Yeah, well, laser cutter as well. Yeah. Although there is a story about the guy who wanted a shortened Raspberry Pi. He really wanted an A, and we didn't produce those for years. And he actually cut one. I think he was in Japan. He actually cut the end off his Raspberry Pi and then draw filed it for about 10 years until it was actually so it didn't short the inner layers together, and it actually worked. It was brilliant. I mean, that's what we like about it. And of course, it's cheap enough to break, and it's also cheap enough to cut in half and not worry about it. I've seen other people take all the connectors off it to make it a slimline Pi,
Yeah, there's a hacker, I think he's called Node, and he just depopulates the board to the bare minimum, just so it's as thin as possible, and puts it in the weirdest and smallest boxes possible. He's got one that's like a wall socket, and it has a Pi Zero inside, and it's a full server, just for basic use. Plug it in, and away it goes.
Yeah, it's just brilliant. Yeah, so I mean, it's been great fun, and I think as I said in a tweet earlier on in the week, I mean, it's been one of the great pleasures of being with Raspberry Pi has been able to go to all these events, meet all these people, talk to all these people. I mean, it's all over the world, really. I mean, I got an invite to Brazil. That was a fantastic trip, but slightly unnerving because I wasn't really sort of a presenting, professional. I never considered myself to be that anyway. But it was fairly early on when I went there, and I was thinking, all these folks they're not listening to me. They're all got their laptops and got their earbuds in. Well, of course, on string then, because they hadn't invented the wire-free ones. was thinking, what's going on? And of course, it clicks in about 5 minutes later that they're all watching the live stream video with the translation on it. So they didn't actually need to be in the auditorium at all. They could have been anywhere in this huge space. But once you get over that, then sort of things like this, sort of become more comfortable, because there'll be, hundreds of people across the world, in fact, just listening in and having a laugh, tuning in, tuning out, who knows. But no, it's great. I mean, and some of the fun ones have been, like Maker Faire. So we went to Maker Faire in California, and that was exciting for a number of reasons. One is trying not to get run over by this high-speed mobile cupcake, which had somebody inside it was driving around. I mean, you must have seen the photos of things like that. I mean, it's such a mishmash of maker technology. It's just fantastic. And they do like this. Sorry.
Yeah, no, just talking about the community and just the variety of it all. With 10 years of hindsight, I want to know, is there anything that the community has embraced, the Raspberry Pi community, beyond its original intention, that you come to appreciate? Something maybe like Pi Wars or Astro Pi, something that just didn't occur to you whenever it was first conceptualized?
Well, I don't, this is being fair. I don't think we'd conceptualized the community at all. We would reached out to it on social media, but we had no idea what would come back. And what really came back is that if you go to a jam or a hackspace, they're all different. They all have different characteristics. And that's what makes it so much fun. Some have very structured timetables, and you've got 10 minutes and klaxon goes off at 10 minutes and 1 second. And others, people can ramble on for hours. But I think, when you look at the volunteers that we've had in Raspberry Pi over the years, then it's what they've done, really, that makes the difference. They've done loads of things. So, I sort of tried to make a little bit of a list. And so early doors, people would help other people get their Raspberry Pis going. Then they'd help people with trying to program the SD card, because early doors, that was a real challenge, unless you knew what you were doing. Then they would write a little project up. I always read people were doing little games with LEDs and push buttons. And they were fantastic, because it was like an easy intro to programming. And they'd write the whole thing up in beautiful detail, and then how you pin it all together with the Raspberry Pi. And they must have spent hours. And these were just appearing. Every couple of days, there'd be another one appearing and appearing and appearing. And I don't think actually Liz and the website could actually keep up with all the great things that were coming out. And then they'd help with the projects that we have on the Raspberry Pi website. And it just flowed. Then people would make videos of unboxing a Raspberry Pi or doing this particular design with a Raspberry Pi. Again, hundreds of hours of work, all contributing to the mission of giving accessibility of technology to whoever wants it, who's got, because once you've got a Raspberry Pi, you've got access to all this community content, which is absolutely brilliant. And then, things like Pi Wars is brilliant. I did have somebody come up to me and said, you have Pi Wars. So what do they do? Do they beat up the pies and smash them to bits? But when you actually get into it and you realize it's all about trying to go over all these different courses, the amount of brain power that's been used for the people who've actually succeeded in getting through it, and also the brain power of the guys that organize it to think of all the different challenges, is just amazing. I mean, I have a very embarrassing sort of unit here, which was a very simple, this one just basically was supposed to line follow. You can see it's got rather a lot of sensors on it to stop it.
Yeah.
But, that was something I did with a group just over a couple of days. And we made a load of them and had some great time. And I think it's, that's the part of the community. Everywhere I go, it's something different, and there's something new to see, and something that somebody's made, and they're fantastic. Somebody's made a sort of essentially a snake out of controlled by a Raspberry Pi, which is sort of little two-wheel jockeys that then actually independently moved, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I remember an early Raspberry Jam in Manchester. Simon Walters.
Yep.
Brought along his Scratch coded robot, so it was programmed in Scratch GPIO of his own making, and it was fantastic. This little robot was going around this obstacle course made out of the placemats from your dinner table, with loads of plasticine or Play-Doh to hold it in place, and this robot just navigated. I'd never seen a robot built by someone out of just parts. I'd seen like a proper unit that had been built by lots of expensive parts, not these cheap stuff you can get from eBay. And it blew my mind. Really good.
It's all brilliant, and but I think so. The community's been in the front of my mind all the time, and I've been hugely appreciative, because I think, if I'm being honest, without the community, then Pi wouldn't be where it is today, and it wouldn't have the outreach it's got. It wouldn't have been able to join forces with Code Club, and it just wouldn't, it just wouldn't have taken off, because we were only a small group. There was originally, there was 6 of us, no office, nothing. The originals, and I'll tell you about that in about a month's time, had to be stashed in somebody's garage. So yeah, no, the community is extra special. For me, it's always been, and it was always great. I mean, the only downside sometimes is having to try and find the pizza order on the way in, because most Raspberry Jams run on pizza.
Yeah,
certainly yours do in Blackpool, Les.
Oh yeah, Blackpool, Manchester. We all run on pizza basically at a Pi Jam.
It's a pie. It's just not that kind of pie.
No. I did go to one event where I was presented with a Raspberry Pi. That was and
Like
a real
pie?
one, the edible version. Yes, it was fantastic. And that was
Wasn't
right.
one of mine, I can't bake.
Yeah, that was right up at the top of Scotland. That was one of Pi Force's one's really long trips. That was like 1,000-mile round trip. So Pi Force 1 is a mini, but it has a drop top, and the benefit of that is you can drop the top, you can put 10 monitors, 10 sets of keyboards in the back, fill it up with all the other sort of robots and screens and any other bits you need, all carefully boxed up. Then you can close the lid. Yeah. Nobody's going to steal it, because if they can't get the lid down, there's no way they're going to be able to get in. So, but for that trip, we actually there was a local guy. I said, "Oh, see this logo? Any chance you can make me a little? Can you make me some little stickers to go on the side of the car?" So if anybody's really interested, there's a it's PLPI road trip. There's a hashtag on Twitter, and you can see all the pictures if you really wanted to. But hey, that car's done loads and loads of trips to jams in its lifetime. Regrettably, it's about to get to end of life. It's done 165,000 miles in that car, so
wow,
it's done well.
So, viewer asks, is there an enterprise level community for SM and LEs?
Right, you're going to have to help me with that. Is that small and medium,
large enterprise?
Yeah. Listen.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I know that there are people who run courses and things at that level, but I'm sure the community would be happy to embrace people, if they wanted that sort of help. I mean, obviously, Raspberry Pi, the actual physical Raspberry Pi is changing and has become more of an industrial product. And I think that's something that Eben could talk to really well in about a month's time. So tune in on that one. But I mean, really, we're talking about the the low-level community of people in basically who do stuff for free.
Yeah.
But
Go on.
no, I was just gonna say, but you do see on forums folks who are using the Pi for enterprise work, and they'll ask questions and they'll get answers for things that they're doing, at work, whether it's setting up web servers or doing some type of testing or security or things like that. So I don't think
there's no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that comes through from the Linux community of being supportive and helpful, and I think that, as you quite rightly point out, is one of the big things. Is that you pose a question on how to do something on a Raspberry Pi, and you could get absolutely swamped with actually useful answers. And that's a great thing, because it gives you confidence that you're going to be able to get through it and actually find a way, whether you're a newbie or somebody who's done it. So I'm just seeing that, and why not? I mean, this is what's moved, where Pi is moving now, is people. It is now escalated to an industrial strength product, so you can use it on the desktop as originally intended, or you can embed it in a product. And of course, we have the embedded versions, the modules, to help you do that. And
what are some of the most interesting products that you've seen it embedded in?
Well, it depends which way you want me to go there. Do you want to go industrial, or you just want to go for the freaky products that people have invented?
No, I mean like a product that someone could actually buy or a business would use.
There's loads of them. In fact, just down the road, there's a company that makes essentially industrial automation that's based on the Raspberry Pi. That's quite a common use of it. You find that things like people are not doing it in things like media centers and things like that, because they are really the things that we do on, if you like, in the community. If you want to make a media center, or you want to make one of these things called a Pi hole for blocking ads, or you want to make robots, it tends to be in that area. But I mean, I have some guys who actually have a line that makes tin cans, and they've created a range of Raspberry Pi kit that actually they can set up on any of the lines, so they can catch it when the one in a 10,000 can does something bizarre and ends up having all these cans flying out in all directions, because they get like a log jam. And they said with the Raspberry Pi, they've been able to watch all sorts of bits obviously with the Pi camera, and then trigger when the Pi camera sees this particular event, and it's great. But I think we're going to see a lot of commercial products with Pi on board, probably in the next 2 to 3 years, wouldn't you say, Les?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's plenty now. NEC has them embedded in their televisions, if I remember rightly, the compute module.
Well, they do, yeah.
We had the Slice Kickstarter about 5 or 6 years ago, which was a compute module based media center. I've got one of those about 8 feet in that direction, but I'm wired in, so I can't get it. We had the Otto camera, which was the first compute module embedded in a device that was kickstarted.
Well, that was again, they were mostly Kickstarter, but that was the little clicky camera, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was quite. We've had them embedded in fish as well, I believe. But that was a one-off. The swimming fish, yeah.
I mean, there was the Kano computer kit, but that is a computer, but so it's
but that's still a kit. But what you're looking, I mean, I think what the thing to look out for is, of course, is the Pi Inside logo on things that we're going to see, I think, on product. Because I think the thing about the embedded computing is the fact that you don't realize it's a computer.
Yeah.
So the Pi driven microwave must be on its way, and that'll be interesting. Yeah. And the Pi fridge. for keeping your raspberries in. Yeah, who knows?
That's great. Yeah, I want the Pi fridge so that I can plug LED lights into it, and I can put a hat on my fridge.
Well, that's it. Yeah, just plug a Pi hat. I mean, that's the other. I mean, just going back, that's the other thing that the community's done. They built hundreds of hats of one sort or another, and it's been great to watch the journey of some people actually starting with a bare PCB, not knowing how to lay out PCBs, and watch them grow and develop, and ultimately succeed in building a product.
Yeah, there you go. That's one of the first hats that I bought from a Kickstarter. That's one of Ryan's boards, Ryan Walmsley.
Right.
Just a simple motor controller. It's been battered and bruised quite a lot because we've had kids hacking with it, but
it's still working.
Yeah, I think Ryan was about 16 or 17 when he designed this, and he made his own business at that age.
And that was for the original Pi, because it's the 26-way connector.
That's it. You only need 26 pins, though, really, don't you, Pete?
Oh yeah, of course. No,
yeah.
No, you need as many as you can get.
More, always more.
Always more, because if you get more, then I'm going to do this. Of course, this is why you should always keep these very handy, Les. You know.
Oh yeah, drawful down there.
Yeah,
drawful. Yeah.
I just keep losing them though on having to buy more. So
it's an industry.
I keep losing jumper cables and having to buy more. So
you sort them by type, or you're going to spend too much time picking through each one.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Different
Trying to find
colors
the
of the
male
ones
to
you need.
female and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I left some of these on a tabletop at Manchester Raspberry Jam. I came back and somebody had very nicely plaited them all together for me.
Aw,
but I mean,
that's nice. Well, we've taken up quite a bit of your time, so I want to thank you, Pete, and thank everybody for tuning in. And of course, we will see you again, and we'll see you again in about a month. We'll see everybody, our audience, again next week at 2:30. But as many of you know, we are taking a month and a half to celebrate the Raspberry Pi 10-year anniversary. So Pete is going to be on with us in a very special episode on Monday, February 28th, along with Eben Upton. But between now and then, we've got a number of really great special guests talking about Pi anniversary. Who do we have next week, Les?
We've got next week Richard Haler from the Raspberry Pi Foundation, who's talking about AstroPi and its history and what's going on now and possibly the future as well.
Well, that's got to be a superb watch. I mean, that is a fantastic project.
Oh, yes. And we also may have a special guest on that one. I'm just going to confirm it in the next couple of days.
Ooh,
secret guest.
Super secret.
A secret guest. I love it. So thank you so much to Pete. We will see you all at 7:30 p.m. UK time, 2:30 p.m. US Eastern time next Tuesday. And as always, we're available on YouTube at all times at the Tom's Hardware channel. See you later. Bye, everyone.
All right. Take care. Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Pete.